guys, it's Kiri and welcome back. This video is going to be for other parents who are planning to come out as trans to their kids. Now, there are many reasons why trans people decide to have kids before transition. Many of us either don't realize or don't want to acknowledge that we are trans and pursue a more traditional family role based on our biological gender. Others may choose to do so as transitioning sterilizes our reproductive system and sperm banking is very expensive as well as hard to access in some places. Not to mention that adoption may not be an option as it's actually illegal for trans people to adopt in many parts of the world still. When I decided to come out and proceed with my transition, I had been married and divorced for a few years already. I have a lovely 9-year-old son, and coming out to him was my biggest worry. How would he react? Would he accept me or would he reject me? How do I even go about telling a kid something like this? Would he even understand what it really means? So I took to the internet and quickly discovered that there are precious few resources out there for parents who are trans. Pages and pages of resources for parents of trans kids, but not so much for parents who want to tell their kids that they are trans. I mean, I couldn't be the only one. Anyways, after weeks of searching, I only found a couple of articles that applied to my situation and I think one video. I basically memorized them and used them as a foundation to form my own plan to come out to my son. As I thought and planned and rehearsed every detail of how I was going to tell him, and I talked to various people both in and out of the trans experience, trying to cover every base with this. All that was going through my head was, what do I do if he rejects me? Do I go back in the closet and pretend it was all a big joke? Do I beg and plead him? A kid? Do I just go ahead and do it anyway and risk losing him? Possibly forever. These were very real and worrying concerns. What I ended up doing in the end was I started priming him with a little talk about LGBT issues. Nothing too heavy or in-depth, just about how some people prefer to love their same gender and how some people just don't feel right in their own bodies and do something about it, i.e. transition. I didn't want to get into sexuality with this, just enough that he had a frame of reference for what was to come. I honestly think my son was starting to pick up on subtle hints and figure it out for himself. He would drop random comments like, people should be able to live however makes them happy, and who cares about being normal? What is normal anyway? Yes, he used air quotes. A 9-year-old was saying these things out of the blue. So I really think that he was starting to notice minor changes in my appearance and my behavior. Kids are a lot more perceptive than we give them credit for, and they're far more accepting than most adults. As long as they haven't drunk from the poisoned well of bigotry and intolerance already, that is. That's the most important part here, I think, is that you've raised your kids without prejudice and bigotry from day one. that will make coming out to them a lot easier. After a few weeks of minor discussions and hypothetical situations, my favorite was one that I laid out a scenario for my son. What if he had a classmate who he'd known since kindergarten, all the way into upper primary school, then suddenly after a holiday break or something, that classmate came to school in a girl's uniform instead of a boy's, and said they wanted to be called Jenny instead of Greg. What would he do? My sweet, darling son's first question was, where did she get the girl's uniform? Everything else was totally normal to him. He just wanted to know how she, his own wording, how she got a girl's uniform in the middle of the year. I said the child's parents had been talking to the school about it for a while. Then he said, will she still play football with me at lunch break? Yeah. Cool. That's when I decided it was time to come out to my son. I sat him down and I slowly went over the previous conversations that we had, just, to refresh him. And then I just came out and told him what I was doing. For me, I felt that straightforward honesty was the best way to tell my son. You need to gauge your own child, and if you've been a good parent all this time, you already should have a pretty decent idea of how to tell your kid. A solid relationship with your child is paramount before you ever tell them anything like this. Another thing that's important in coming out to your kid is to emphasize the things that will stay the same, not just focusing on the things that are going to change. Especially if they're younger. Teens are one thing, but younger kids, like my son, they need that sense of stability. If you have a ritual or a special bonding time with your kid, whether you're with the child's other parent still or not, that special bonding time with your child must endure. If you watch movies together or play video games or go camping every weekend, keep doing it. That is their time with you, the person. In my previous video titled A Father's Love, which was my own dad's open letter to me on Facebook, he said something that really applies here. To your child, make sure that they understand that you may be changing the siding on the house, but the home inside is still the same. Always, always, always keep your kid in the loop. My son now is as knowledgeable about trans issues as I am. We discuss my medical procedures, different aspects of social transitioning, and all the other stuff that goes along with it. It's important that your kid knows what's going on with you. Familiarity leads to trust and comfort. If they know and understand what's going on, and know that you may be changing, but still love them the same, then it will go smoother. Now, obviously, the age and mental maturity of your kid is going to be a big factor too. My son is 9, but he has a much more mature personality. So I'm comfortable discussing some of the more technical aspects with him. Feel free to ask me any questions that you might have in the comment section below that I might have missed. Or you can contact me on Twitter. all of my links are in the description below. And I now have a Patreon and merch. So if you like what I'm doing here, please consider supporting me through one of those ways. It really helps out. So, until next time, bye!